to a marketing workshop. It was 2 full days. It was free in Los Angeles, and there were 2 different presenters. And they're basically folks who mentor other folks on how to run their businesses online, but they also have a lot of information about old school marketing. So I was intrigued, and it was free, and I live near LA, so I decided to go. They held it at an airport hotel conference room, and the goal was for them to give us information, but also for them to sell their mentoring programs. So I went into it knowing I wasn't going to buy anything, so it wasn't a big deal for me. But a big part of the information that they portrayed was also in that they were kind of talking in using their strategies while they were talking to us about what they're good at and their stories and things like that. But I thought that certain pieces of it might be useful because they did talk about online platforms. We were not allowed to take pictures, so all this is coming, me trying to recreate it from my notes. So the first presenter, he's a little more traditional, suit, tie kind of guy, high pressure sales, not really my style. I was actually completely turned off by his style, which got me thinking about how I talk to people through Messenger and things, and that I don't want to be salesy. I want to be helpful. He does have decades of experience. He's very formal. He brought a lot of his students with him who were there. I hated his graphics. They were really dated. He did them himself. But what he talked a lot about was if you were doing a presentation or a funnel or a website, these are the different stages in this matrix that you should focus on. So he has them in a certain order, and I think it's a little bit nuanced and detailed, but I find it helpful to go back and look at this if I'm about to do a video and be like, hey, am I, building my credibility by making eye contact and being confident? Am I using a video to secure their attention? Am I telling my story? Do I have credentials and things like that? So just working through some of these. Secure attention, the first one, they talked about using multimedia video if you're using a website or something like that. And to build credibility, they talked about you can get yourself on TV shows. Obviously something I'm not into, but I found it interesting that that's their approach. Because apparently a lot of people, if you're on TV, then you're an authority on something. And so it was interesting to me to think about that because I'm not in the marketing world. I used to do graphic design, but my brain doesn't work like this. So it was good to have another perspective on this. But I think a lot of this I wouldn't actually do, but it was interesting. Number 4, they talked about making sure that you're being relatable and you're letting the audience build you back up and how you overcame your fears. Okay, that makes sense to me. I want to be relatable. So some of these things were helpful. Target the problem, identify people's 3 concerns, suggest a solution, make sure you're setting their expectations, present yourself in a way that's unforgettable. And they talked a lot about telling your story and things like that I'll get a little more into in a moment. But what's your revelation? How did you figure this all out? And I know these are a lot of things that we all talk about in a different way, but it was helpful for me since I'm such a data gatherer to have this laid out, even though I'm not going to sit here and work through each one of these, but it's nice to go back and reference it in the future. So social proof, is it verified? Do you have testimony? Which is not really something I've thought about. I've heard it mentioned before, but it does make sense. If you're setting up a website or a lot of times our before and afters will use other people's before and afters, and that's almost like its own form of testimony. So showing the proof and how the products have worked in the past. He also did a little exercise with business cards and critiquing them and things like that. Again, a lot of old school sales techniques that don't necessarily apply to all of us, but interesting to hear about what traditional sales are about. asking permission to sell to someone. So this is something I have been doing lately. I ask people if it's okay if I send them a video. So I think, you know, number 14 makes sense to me. Of course, talking about our benefits and features, we all do that through our posts. They talk a lot about having a guarantee, which our products already have. A lot of these things are already built in for us. And then free bonuses. Sometimes we all do, you know, gift cards or 20% or $20 off or things like that. So I thought it was interesting to put this into a matrix and kind of look at it. This was one of the slides that they had. They also talked a lot about how the language that you use is very important. And it's something I know, but I don't really know how to improve it. So they talked about make sure that you're an authority. Don't say, I think during your videos, make sure you're making eye contact and have positive body language. And he had like 37 different body language things. Don't back away from the camera, things like that. And again, in the way they presented this, they were kind of using all of these pieces and exemplifying it in their presentation. So it's hard for me to recreate that, but I'm trying to pull out the different pieces. Make sure you're putting your best foot forward. This is something that they didn't quite agree on. The first guy who was more old school was like, you must wear a suit and certain colors and things like that. And your belt must match your shoes. And then the younger second presenter was like dressed in Lululemon sweatpants and like really casual. And I related a lot better to him. Age-wise, I'm like right in the middle of the two of them. But the second presenter was just more casual, more my speed. I'm not a formal person. But I get it. Present the best you when you're doing a video and show that you are enough and that you have good energy and that you're articulate. Of course, showing the worth and the value of the products. We talk about this all the time, the consistent results, give examples. And the old school guy was really big on testimonies and they should be emotional and people crying. And I was like, yeah, not my speed, but okay. And then they talked about incentives. So sometimes on your ads, you'll see these things pop up once in a while. I don't get too many of them, but like free book if you pay shipping and handling. And that's like a sales funnel that they use to try and upsell you other things. And you know, the pressure, it's a limited time. So there's that pressure piece, which is, you know, we have deadlines and things, we have groups starting, but they were pushing more of that. But I do think that it's good to set expectations. I haven't always done this with my challengers, and I'm starting to learn to do this a little more, make sure they're fully committed and they understand that like I can't do it for them. They have to do it too. So what's my responsibility versus their responsibility? And stressing the warranty, the guarantee that we have. So they were very big on telling your story and how you go about that. Starting off with where you came from, the odds are against you, but if you can do it, they can, other people can do it too. You know, your backstory of how you got there. And the second presenter did not grow up in America and came from a poor family and was really into like video games and things like that. So kind of told his story and how he began making money online, which was interesting. Talked about a lot about keep your text to a minimum, things like that, if you're going to do videos or have a website or a sales funnel, which is above my level at this point, but making sure that you're human, that you're sharing embarrassing, you know, stories about you, but in a way that you can have a turning point and that you can conquer that, that you can get over that, you can overcome that. So I think a lot of us are pretty comfortable with that to some degree, and that might be somewhat intuitively, but something to just think about chunking it out and breaking it down. Making sure you know your objective and like why people should stick around. So a lot of times these guys would be in these conference rooms and talking to people about their product in person. And apparently at the end of the presentation, people like go to the back of the room and give their credit card. Like that's like the old school way to do it. So they talked a lot about, with the value that money isn't that important, but tap into the bigger picture of what people can gain from it, and understanding the structure of a sales close, making sure that you're not afraid of that, and it's sprinkled throughout the entire presentation and interaction. And then this little tab up at the top, they were talking about, try to be relatable and vulnerable, make like jokes, make them empowered, feel in control, good and high energy. And the younger second presenter also talked about making sure you're kind of incorporating all of this, like if you go live as well. So again, the second presenter, and the first presenter, at the end of the first day, he sold his year membership for him to mentor you. The basic plan was $3,000, and literally 70 people in the room got up, and it was like me and 5 other people sitting there not buying it. And I was like, really? This seems like a timeshare thing, like high pressure, but this is totally not my style. But people were super into it. It was very, like, the psychology of it was very interesting to me, because it was totally unexpected to me that all these people got up when he was selling the basic for $3,000. I think the deluxe is $10,000. And he handed out an application, which I know a lot of folks on our team do give applications to either our challenges or our coaches. And his basic questions for folks he's considering mentoring were: how much money do you want to make in the next 12 months? How many hours do you want to work per week? How much time per day do you want to spend with your family and friends? How many vacations do you want to take each year? And how many years until you want to retire? And, do you understand that this is guaranteed? Because his guarantee is that you will make 3 times what you pay for his mentoring within a year. And you have a 30-day money back guarantee. So people were into that, which to me, I was like, that's a ton of money. You're crazy. You're all crazy. But people were super into it. And I guess that's why they stress the guarantee so much. So the second presenter was much younger and tech savvy, had like really nice graphics, and talked a lot about the different social media platforms. So I felt like this was a lot more relevant for a lot of us. So what he talked about is that when you're talking to folks, and he's pretty big, so he does like all Facebook ads and has sales funnels and things like that. But that you're trying to get people close to the hole, like you're in mini golf, and you're not typically going to get a hole in one, because if it's your cold market, you don't know them. So you're just trying to get them close to the hole. You don't want to try and go for the hole in one all at once, because odds are you're not going to get the ball in the hole. However, if you get it close to the hole and each time get them more and more comfortable with you, and you're showing them the value, that eventually when it's a 6-inch putt, you'll get it in the hole. And he talked a lot more about different numbers and making sure that you prioritize things and you understand your business, which I think is important. Like, is this a hobby or is it a business? So that appealed to me as well. Like, make sure you know your numbers and you're prioritizing your time and planning. He kept saying it's all heart and math, which I thought was interesting. And again, he's talking about like monetizing all these systems and things like that. How much is your average customer worth, a cart, things like that. But it was very interesting to me that a lot of folks were ready to sign up and get on board with selling whatever, or learning how to coach from these folks and going out there and buying Facebook ads. So like, I know Facebook ads exist, but it hasn't really been on my radar, and I don't know that's something I want to try, but it was educational to learn a little more about them. Talked about an automated sales process, and to know how much you spend on Facebook ads. There's a bunch of analytics in the background if you're curious, where you can keep track of who clicks through and things like that. And then kind of tweak your system, see what the weakest link is, and tweak your system from there. So They talked about sales funnels. There was a bunch of folks in there who were, there's a company that sets up sales funnels for people. And I've seen them in ads. To me, it just looks like one really long website page, but it was interesting to understand how the marketers think about these things. And so they have 4 different approaches. And one was like the free book plus the person just pays shipping and handling, and you get comfortable with the person. You're giving them something for mostly free. You're taking a slight loss on it, and then you do upsales, which I was kind of like, well, that's not really relevant. But the last time I checked out, ads did pop up for other products. So I guess that's basically an upsale or an added sale. It's just not something we're necessarily doing. They talked about if you're doing things anyway, if you have a group and a membership, do a free trial, which one of the things I would like to do is set up a free group. I know other folks like Erica runs a budgeting group and things like that. So that is something I would like to set up, kind of like a group that's free, vegetarian recipes or something, and then get to know people. And this is kind of where he was talking about, like, get the ball closer to the hole, get people comfortable with you. And you're showing them that you're valuable, that you can help them in life. And then another one was a webinar, which was more relevant to, like, if I put a video up, I guess, but they were talking about how you can structure it so that it runs every hour and replay it, and then people check out from there. And then they were talking about the high ticket item. You know, they sell things for thousands of dollars, which again is crazy to me because I'm just not going to buy something like that from an ad, but apparently a lot of people do. So making sure, I know we've talked about like avatars and things like that, and they reinforced, you know, making sure you're talking to your ideal customer, building up audiences on your platform, and then sending them to your sales platform, which I guess for us would be Share a Cart. With videos, he, you know, gave a couple things that are somewhat intuitive, but when you create videos, the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with it. And he showed some of his first videos and they were like awful. They were horrible. So that was actually very heartening to see how bad he was at presenting initially. And he's pretty good at talking and presenting now. So just practice, overcome your fear of the camera. Everyone's going to suck at first, you know, find your voice, be yourself, showcase your passion, multiply your content. He was talking a lot about how you can take like a video, a live that you do on Facebook, and then take that, and if you put the text at the bottom, you can add that later, and apparently that ups you in the Facebook algorithm. So there's a way to do that. If you have questions about it, let me know. I'll find the notes for that. You can also take it and put it on IGTV, and then that'll feed to your Instagram feed. So some of this stuff I kind of knew, but knowing your audience he really delved into, like, you have to know who you're talking to, which I know we've talked about before, but he kind of broke it down in a very specific way. Your cold market, you know, they don't know you. You're just trying to get them comfortable with knowing who you are. He would, when he first started off, he would look at the really big players and do something very similar to them. And he, you know, again, he's creating Facebook ads that have videos, so not as relevant, but I have been creating videos for different groups recently, and it seems people are more receptive than when I've done like a generic video. So he would actually find like an author that he likes and talk and like target them, because in Facebook ads with the algorithm, you can target people, but you can do the same thing with who's following and commenting on an author's page. So if it's something that you're interested in, like, I don't know, I like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, you can tailor videos to that audience and talk a little bit about like, oh, this is relatable to this. But even though it's not a generic video, you can use it more than once because it's a certain type of person has a specific interest that you're aware of. Warm market, they already know you exist. They've seen a video or two of yours before. And there's different ways to track what appealed to them previously. But I guess I took this kind of more as I'm having conversations with people, making sure I'm paying more attention to and picking up on signals more with other folks, and not to be super generic. And then a hot market, they know who you are. They've already given you like an email. In his case, gone through his sales funnel. And I know we talk a lot about like, we're going to get a lot of no's. He was talking that not from his cold market, not from his warm market, but from his hot market, typically the conversion of people who buy is 5%, which again, like this is a guy making a lot of money on things. And he said 5% of his hot market, 5% of the people who clicked on an ad, watched a video, then kept going with it. So that's pretty low. So when we're talking about, consistency with our vital behaviors and things, it just kind of rings home how you have to do the actions in order to talk to enough people that you can relate to, to hit Success Club or to help 3 people a month or things like that. And then in Facebook ads, there's a thing with retargeting, which again, he said that's where he invests most of his money. And it basically means like people who became his hot market but said no. He said that's the biggest investment. And to me, that's like our follow-ups with people who have said no a bunch of times. So honestly, it's much easier for us than these guys make it all complicated. But, a few things we can learn from them. And then there's like fancy code you can install and track things in Facebook ads. I did think this was interesting. He talked about like, think of your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed as it's your channel, your HBO or Nickelodeon or whatever. And certain platforms are known to tilt a little more to different ways. And so Facebook is kind of thought of as like the talk show. And for Facebook ads, pay to play. You want to make sure you grab people's attention within 3 seconds. And he was saying, it doesn't matter if it's Facebook ad or your feed people, it's like three seconds. So you can do the type of video like how we first met and fell in love and things like that online and tell a story. And, people will respond to that better on Facebook than they will on YouTube. And part of that has to do with the way the search engines are set up and the algorithms. So apparently YouTube, I don't really mess around with YouTube too much, but it has its own separate search engine. And he was talking about if you can avoid sending people to YouTube, because then you're pointing them outside of your platform or the conversation you're having with them. I think it's appropriate sometimes, but and YouTube is like the new sitcom type of show. Instagram is like a lifestyle, and that's where a lot of fitness and health folks are found. And he said the most people respond the best to the content that's like behind the scenes. And I already mentioned to use Instagram TV for longer clips. Make sure you're using stories. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Trello. I use it a lot for search and rescue stuff, but it's an organizational platform that you can have teams on, and you can kind of put workflows through it. So, I think in an ideal world, it'd be great for onboarding, but everyone's got to use what's comfortable, and it's also free. I should mention that. So he actually showed, and this kind of was breadcrumbing for his mentorship program, but he has like a team of people that work for him. When he shoots a video, he has this entire board that's the workflow of what you do with a video and how you set it up on which platform and all of this, and different checklists for people. And I was thinking, well, this would be really helpful for bringing new coaches on and training them and having checklists for them. I do like Trello. I don't know if everyone does, but if that's something you're looking for, that is a good tool that I would definitely recommend. And they talked a little bit about podcasts, how it's the new radio, but it's hard to monetize podcasts. However, you're showing a lot of value to your audience. So this I found very helpful. He was talking about your content, especially videos, because he has a big focus on videos, but trying to reach as many of these categories as you can in each video or content that you make. So there's kind of the category of how to, so you're teaching people something. And then there's virtual videos, things that go viral, pranks, things like that. He was saying they're not always monetizable, but once they catch on, they spread a lot. And people tend to click like and things like that a lot more with that style, that category. And then there's direct response, your call to action, which he was saying it's, straightforward. You're asking people to do something at the end. And the fourth category was making sure that you're incorporating your branding. So this is something that I think we can all, reference and use pretty easily, kind of think about how many of these categories can you hit in a video or when you go live, things like that. And you will keep the audience more, entertained and educated. So this is basically his video cheat sheet. And he was talking about make sure that you're pre-planning what you're going to talk about on a video, not writing out word for word sentences, but bullet points. So what's your big idea for the video? Like what are you trying to get across? I know for me, I'm not great at like just getting on live and talking. I'm like a planner. I'm business oriented. I've like had to lay out presentations for years. So this kind of helped me a little bit with, what am I focusing on before I hit record or go live on my phone? So what's one big idea for your video? How do you want your audience to feel? And really think about that before you start talking. Like what's the beginning of your video? Why is someone going to watch past 5 seconds? Like what's the hook that keeps them interested? What's the first point, the second point, and the third point you're going to make in the video? And then what do you want them to do after you watch the video? Like, I know I have a tendency to say like, have a great day. I'm not really asking them to do anything, which is probably okay for some of my content, but some of my content I should be saying like, hey, if you're interested, message me or something, just like we do with our posts. But when I'm on camera, I don't necessarily think to do that. I'm like wrapping it up. And then also making sure that you're threading into that what people's biggest misconception is about what you do, or whatever topic you're talking about, and what your mission is, making sure you're communicating that to folks and explaining it in a way so that people want to support you. And again, they talked more about obtaining testimonies and it being emotional. And they did a demonstration with it, which I thought was a little intense, but it was interesting because they would have somebody talk about what the first presenter did for them and how he changed their life. And then they would repeat it back to them, like fine tuning it a little bit, but still using their words. And then the other person would say it back to them. So they went back and forth a few times until they got a video that was more clear and concise and emotional, which I don't know, I could take or leave, but people do react to emotion. So, and he said, make sure that the person who you've helped is talking about like, what is different about you? Like, how can you help the other people better than the next person? So, handling objections. So they went through the most common objections, which I think, we've all struggled with at some point. First one being, it's not the right time. So the old school presenter said, make sure you give a specific personal story of how this has helped you in your life, and give that example of somebody in a rough place, whether it's you or somebody else, how you've seen it's changed their life and helped them. You can talk about people's bucket list? Does this help them address their bucket list and things like that? And again, they said this way more eloquently than I did, but these are just my notes from it. And presenter number 2 talked about how it's never going to be the right time, and one decision can change your life, and listing out the 5 most important events in your life. If it's not now, then when? So I do think, like, if you get stuck talking to folks, referring back to some of these just to get your brain thinking and brainstorming might be useful. I have to consult with a loved one. I haven't really gotten this very much, but when I went to that workshop, somebody asked me, well, why didn't you buy their their mentorship thing? And I said, oh, well, my husband and I discussed it beforehand. I wasn't buying anything. So I guess it could be relevant in some cases, but talking a bit about empowering them, and it's urgent because you'll pay more later and things like that. And when was the last time you did something for you? And then I need to think about it. So make sure that you're presenting. That's why they talk about those case studies and the proof and the testimonials or the before and after pictures. Remind them about the guarantee, that the risk is on, us or the company, not the person who you're trying to help. The person you're trying to help is in control, and encourage them to trust their gut. I like the second presenter's answer because it struck a chord with me when he said, all of your best decisions made in life, did you follow your heart or your mind? So I think that for some of us who think a little more logically, that's a pretty good point to make. And I'm one of those folks. So don't give your mind a chance to make excuses. Too expensive. And they were saying, like, it cost you $10 million that you didn't find us 10 years ago, because you could have been, like, basically retired by now, and you would have been in our shoes if you had jumped on this 10 years ago. And the second presenter, and again, the first presenter was like the hard sales guy. The second presenter said, in comparison to what? Yeah, it's a lot of money, but if all it did was this one thing, wouldn't it still be worth it? But it potentially can do all these other things for you. And what's the cost of not doing it? Make sure you don't regret things. And then, can I do this? Is this something I can do? And I think this is more something that comes up, with talking to folks about coaching. And they said, make sure your testimony covers this, that it's everyday people doing these different things and achieving these amazing results. Showing videos and examples of someone who had no idea what they were doing. And they did show a pretty funny video, but they were able to overcome their lack of knowledge. And they talked about, making sure that you're building this in. You're not just, oh, someone has this objection, and then at the end, you're trying to circle back around. So integrate this in your conversations. And they also mentioned that people want things done for them. So they don't want to have to think about how to overcome these different excuses. So lay it out for them. And I think that's all I had. I have no idea what time it is. But so I didn't really look at the chat to see if there were any questions. So Erica said she's gotten the hubby objection a lot. Yeah, so Trello's pretty cool. I would just download it and mess around with it. You can download it to your phone, and it also works in a browser. So in, Chrome or whatever. Tara said she uses it at work. Unfortunately, in my day job, we are not allowed to use it. But on my personal phone, I love it. Oh, and Rose said she went to an event previously that did the same type of sales tactic. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting because I went into it like, oh, it's free. I'll just learn what I learn and go eat good food in LA. That's fine. So, did anyone have any questions or?
Yeah, this was great info. Same kind of concept of like that other thing that I went to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like Tony Robbins. I don't know if it was Gary Vee. I think he was there. but they all had you like go run in the back like to all these tables and give your credit
Yeah.
card. But I love what you talked about, because I think there are so many different pieces that you can pull from this and definitely like use in our business. And then I think like the thing that I've tried the whole website funnel thing, and like I think for our business, the more simple we can keep it, the easier it is for us. Like I thought, I think I might tried that like 2 or even 3 years ago. And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna get this whole website and have this whole funnel. And it was just like not my jam. And I think like I was forcing it way too much. I'm like, I gotta do this, I gotta, and it was just like it caused so much stress for me where I wasn't like having fun with it. So I think that started to show through too. Um, so yeah, well, all those tips those guys gave, we could definitely use. Like, remember, just take what you need and leave the rest, because some of it can be just like, even like I've used Trello too. But for me, like my mind just wouldn't work with it. I'm like, I don't understand. It was
And
like,
that's totally how my brain works is
yeah,
Trello.
like for me, it was too much like to learn like extra. Whereas for someone like you, like for me, I'm like, organization is not my thing. Like there's stuff all over my office, like paper everywhere. So, but that also speaks to your people, right? Like, so if like you're onboarding a new coach and that's how you like to run your thing, like you're probably onboarding coaches that are just like that. So that might be, you got to go with what your gut. And I love that at the end. What do people follow, their heart first or their mind or their greatest things in life? And that's so true, right? Like trust your gut. Great call. And everyone, this is V's first team call. Give her a round of
Thanks.
applause. And thank you so much for stepping up. I know the first call I ever did, I think I said like 500 times, and it was like god awful. And same thing like you said with that guy. Like if you go back to my YouTube channel, to my first call, it was awful. So yes, thank you for stepping up. And if anybody ever wants to step up and run a team call, just let me know. But does anybody have any other questions or any comments? They want to unmute or chat box?
Yeah, I know it's a little like not traditional for our team calls and kind of
Great.
a ton of information, but that's why I'm like, just take what you need out of it. And this is
Yeah.
sitting there if you ever need it. Or
And everything, like when it's good when it's different. If it's the same thing, like it's not going to relate to everybody. So this, I think, was a good way to, just break it up and do something different. So totally awesome.
but I would not recommend going to one of these if you don't want, like, it's not a good return on investment of time. Like I was there for like 16 hours and I feel like I could have gotten like 2 hours worth of info out of it. So
Hey, you tried, right? You did something different.
yeah, I tried it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just my experience.
Can you unshare your screen? That way we can do like a team picture
Yeah.
with everybody. Do the gallery view. Should we do a boomerang? We'll wave or something. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, V.